Imagine a machine able to power a house of business or even an entire town without needing fuel solar panels or wind turbines, a machine not created in Silicon Valley or in Europe, but in the heart of Africa. For many years, people around the world doubted whether something like this could ever exist. Some called it a myth, others called it an illusion, and a few believed it was simply too good to be true. But today that invention has crossed the Atlantic Ocean, arriving in the United States and creating waves of curiosity, amazement, and heated debate. This is the story of Maxwell Chikumbutso and the self-powering generator that is making the world question everything it thought it knew about energy on a warm summer morning on July 28th. 2020, for the cargo doors open at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, a small group of engineers, journalists, and curious observers gathered quietly near the runway. The sky was clear. The air was filled with a feeling that something historic was about to happen. People looked at one another, whispering softly, trying to imagine what they were about to witness. Inside a protective casing sat the self-powered generator built in Africa, now touching American ground for the very first time. At first glance, the machine did not look very different from other modern equipment. It had a smooth metal shell, clean lines, and digital panels that gave it a sleek, futuristic appearance. It emitted a soft, low hum, as if it had a heartbeat. And those who truly understood what it could do realized immediately this was not just a machine. It was a statement. It was proof that something once dismissed as impossible could be real. Only a few days later, the generator was carefully moved to a private research facility in Washington, D.C. The hall was filled with energy experts, government officials, scientists, reporters, and silent observers. Some came with excitement to witness history. Others arrived with doubt, determined to expose what they believed was a clever trick. Maxwell himself was not yet in the United States, but his team of African engineers stood proudly beside the invention. Each of them carried the weight of years of disbelief and struggle, but they also carried hope. A technician walked to the center of the room. He connected the generator to a line of bright lights and several household appliances. No fuel, no external wires, no hidden power source. Just the machine itself. Everyone held their breath as the switch was flipped. Instantly, the lights came to life. The fans spun, computers started up, the heaters clicked on. The sound of steady humming filled the room, as though the machine could keep going forever. A deep silence followed, not the silence of doubt, but the silence of realization. Then a single whisper spread to the crowd. One American scientist muttered softly, "This changes everything we have ever believed about energy." Within hours, news of the event spread across the world. Social media exploded with posts and videos. Headlines filled every platform. African generator running without fuel shocks U.S. engineers. An invention that could end the energy crisis. Does Africa hold the key to free power? The story was no longer just an idea. It had become a global conversation. In corporate towers and government offices, questions piled up. How was this possible? Could be scaled up? Could power entire cities or even nations? What would happen to the trillion-dollar energy industry if this was real? Oil companies began to watch carefully. Renewable energy firms felt uneasy. Defense agencies quietly sent their own representatives to investigate. Energy experts were divided. Some called it revolutionary. Others said it was too good to be true. Behind the scenes, quiet discussions began almost immediately. Some American corporations wanted to license the technology. Others wanted to buy it outright. Skeptics demanded deeper investigations, claiming that perpetual energy was impossible and that the machine had to be a hoax. But while the debates were raging, Maxwell himself was preparing to travel to the United States. He was not coming to sell his invention. He was coming to show the world what Africa was capable of. 2 days later, all eyes turned to Washington Dallas Airport. Maxwell Chikumbutso stepped off the plane with calm, steady steps. A small team surrounded him like a protective shield. For years, people had dismissed his ideas. They called him a dreamer, a trickster, even a fraud. But now he was standing in the most powerful nation on earth, walking straight into the storm. Reporters rushed toward a microphone. Stretched out cameras flashed bright lights in his face. "Maxwell, how does it work?" shouted one voice. "Is this perpetual motion?" asked another. "Are you selling this technology to America?" Someone else cried. Maxwell smiled softly and replied, "This is not about selling. This is about freedom. Energy should never be a privilege. It must be a right." His words echoed through the crowd like thunder. The people listening knew this was not just a technical statement. It was a vision. In the days that followed, Maxwell became a sensation across the nation. Television stations aired interviews. Experts debated his words. Talk shows featured heated arguments. Some people called him a hero. Others called him a threat. Meetings with high-ranking officials took place behind closed doors, and strategies began to form. Some believed the United States should embrace the African invention and make history others fear the disruption it could bring to existing systems and industries. Meanwhile, Maxwell and his team continue to demonstrate their technology city by city, group by group. They visited laboratories, universities, and innovation centers. The generator kept running quietly, powering whatever was connected to without any visible source of energy. Its steady hum became a sound that fascinated the public. People began to wonder if this could change the future of power forever. Imagine entire neighborhoods powered without fossil fuels. Imagine homes free from monthly electricity bills. Imagine a world where energy is not controlled by a handful of corporations, but shared freely. Yet the rise of hope also came with resistance. Oil executives held secret meetings, energy lobbies raised concerns, legal teams began to draft arguments about regulation, and control military advisors whispered about national security. Some argued that if the technology spread freely, it could destabilize existing power structures. Others argued that it was the next step for human civilization, a leap into a cleaner, brighter era. Maxwell remained calm through it all. He spoke to the public with quiet strength, repeating his message over and over. Energy is not a privilege. It is a right. People began to see him not just as an inventor, but as a symbol of a global shift. He represented something larger than himself. He represented a future not controlled by scarcity, but empowered by possibility. But the story was far from over. In conference rooms across Washington and other cities, powerful people were deciding what to do. Some wanted to contain the technology and slow its release. Others wanted to own it entirely and profit from it. A few brave voices called for open access. They argued that if Africa had created this technology, it should not be stolen or buried. It should be shared fairly with the world. Other nations were also watching closely. China quietly sent observers. European leaders requested briefings. African countries celebrated with pride, seeing one of their own challenge the biggest industries on Earth. The world was shifting, and everyone could feel it. Maxwell knew this was only the beginning. He was preparing for larger demonstrations, more powerful prototypes, and global partnerships. He was determined that no one would silence this technology. As more tests were carried out, the results were consistent. The machine worked every time it was switched on. Lights, powered up devices operated continuously, and the hum never faded. People began to gather outside research centers, hoping to catch a glimpse. Ordinary citizens discussed it in cafes, on buses, at work, and at home. Some called it the energy revolution. Others said it was the dawn of a new age. Governments drafted emergency strategies. Energy companies prepared offensive plans. Investment groups started making moves. The battle lines were slowly being drawn, and while the world argued, Maxwell continued his mission quietly with a steady belief that the truth would speak for itself. He gave interviews not to boast, but to inspire. He reminded everyone that innovation does not belong to one nation or one company. It belongs to humanity. Stay tuned for part 2. The stakes are rising. The questions are growing louder. Will America welcome this technology or try to control it? Will the world unite behind a cleaner and freer source of power, or will it fight to keep the old systems alive? The answer will shape the future of energy, and perhaps the future of the planet itself. The hum of the machine continues steady, unbroken, a sound that may soon power the world.